Welcome back, everybody. We are back in 2nd Chronicles. We're going to be in chapter 25 today. Now, before I jump in, I do have to let you know that I am shivering. My timbers are shivering because it's freezing outside. It's precisely 28 degrees, and I am just not built for this type of weather. So, shiver my timbers. I'm cold. Where was I? 2nd Chronicles 25. King Amaziah, the son of King Joash from the previous chapter, he starts off looking like he's going to show some promise, some real potential, but then he proceeds to make some questionable moves. You would think his royal advisors were the comment section of a YouTube video, which is never where you want to go to get advice. Am I right? But ultimately, chapter 25 has got it all. Early promise, bad investments, divine side-eye, and one king that lets his pride turn his victory lap into a full-on wipeout. So let's jump in. Alright, in the previous chapter, King Joash started off strong and ended up a disaster once his mentor Jehoiada passed away. He was all like, started from the temple, now I'm here. No. Now his son Amaziah steps up, and you'd think after watching his dad blow it, he would have taken some notes or something, but spoiler alert, he did not. Chapter 25, verse 2 says, Amaziah did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, but not wholeheartedly. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, but not wholeheartedly. So he was doing the right thing, but with bare minimum effort. But he does do one good thing early. He avenges his father's death, but doesn't kill the murderer's kids. And that's actually the law from back in Deuteronomy, where there's no generational payback. So, gold star, Amaziah. You're off to a solid B+ start. Then Amaziah gears up to fight Edom. He counts his army. He has 300,000 men. But then he's like, what if I spent a fortune on hiring some extra soldiers from Israel? So he sends 100 talents of silver to 100,000 mercenaries from Israel. And this is basically the ancient day version of hiring sketchy freelancers online. And a prophet shows up and he's like, hey, Amaziah, maybe don't hire those idol worshipping people, please. And so Amaziah's like, but look, I've already paid them. What am I to do? And then the prophet tells him in verse 9, the Lord is able to give you much more than this. So, unbelievably, Amaziah actually listens, which is a real shocker. He sends the mercenaries home. The mercenaries leave pretty angry, and you just know that that is a subplot coming back with revenge later on. But for now, Amaziah crushes Edom. It's a total victory. 10,000 enemies defeated, another 10,000 thrown off a cliff, which is brutal. Everything's going great until Amaziah decides to bring home Edom's idols and start worshiping them. God's like, dude, I just gave you this victory and you're thanking me with some random statues. You kidding me right now? I mean, that's like winning the Super Bowl MVP, and instead of shouting out your coaches or teammates, you say, I would like to thank my lucky socks for getting me this far. Verse 15 says, this made the Lord very angry, and he sent a prophet to ask, why do you turn to gods who could not even save their own people from you? I mean, that's a legitimate question. It's like, I just gave you the victory over these people, and these random idol statues couldn't save them, but for some reason you think there's value now in those things. I don't understand. But instead of listening, King Amaziah in verse 16 says, since when have I made you the king's counselor? Be quiet now before I have you killed. So the prophet basically is like, cool, but just so you know, God's already planning your downfall. Have a nice reign, Amaziah. Then King Amaziah challenges King Jehoash of Israel to war, and King Jehoash responds in verse 18, out of the Lebanon mountains a thistle sent a message to a mighty cedar tree, give your daughter in marriage to my son. But just then a wild animal of Lebanon came by and stepped on the thistle, crushing it. Know your place, you little shrub, you little thistle. But Amaziah, of course, he ignores this. He fights anyways, and he gets absolutely wrecked. Jerusalem's walls come down, the temple's looted, Amaziah is kidnapped, and in hindsight, he's like, I probably should have stayed home for this one. And to conclude this chapter, King Amaziah is later killed by some conspirators while he's hiding out in a place called Lachish. And his reign ends like it began, technically righteous, but emotionally unavailable. Now, my favorite verse in this whole chapter is the second part, verse 9, where the prophet of God replied to King Amaziah, and he said, the Lord is able to give you much more than this. Because honestly, that's the ultimate comeback to every, but what if I lose my money, my time, my status? God's like, buddy, I own the universe. Relax. I can give you more than this. All right, what are the takeaways we can pull from this today? The first thing that kind of stuck out to me was that half-hearted faith won't cut it. Amaziah, he was good-ish, but good-ish isn't the same as being faithful. God's not looking for part-time followers with full-time excuses, and I think that's a lesson that we could all take from King Amaziah today. The second thing is that obedience will cost you something, but God always refunds us with interest. God always pays us back more than what we lost. Sending those mercenaries home felt like a loss to King Amaziah, but obedience is always the best investment. And last but not least, this one should be blatantly obvious, but pride makes smart people do some really dumb things. King Amaziah's enemy wasn't Edom or Israel, but it was his own ego, his own pride. Pride whispers, "You've got this," and God's like, "No, you had this until you said that." So the challenge I have for you today is this. Find those half-hearted areas in your life, the thing or the things that you give God 60% of. Then crank it up to 100%. No more part-time faith, no more prideful do-it-yourself Christianity. When pride tells you that you've got this, just whisper back, "No, God's got this." Then to proceed to let God prove it. So that is chapter 25, where King Amaziah almost nailed it, but he tripped over his own pride. In the next chapter, we'll see whether or not his son Uzziah can do any better. I'm not going to spoil it for you now. So until next time, stay humble, stay faithful, and remember, won't he do it?